(2023) Mother Gaia, third dimensional planet, ascending into fourth dimensional collective consciousness. Azure,
Grand Rising Captain.
can you give me the update on third dimensional planet Gaia?
Yes, Christo, with pleasure. Gaia 3D currently is under critical condition. It seems there is a large amount of humans that have forgotten who they are, causing confusion, division and war driven by fear.
Thank you, Azure. Before we head down to Gaia, can you give me any information about the 3D world, as it's been a while since I've been there?
Sure, the 3D Gaia. We will face much resistance from negative polarity beings as a dual plane. Karma and Dharma are in effect. There is free will. It will be wise to protect our energy and hold love.
Alright, thank you, Azure. Sounds like we have quite the task at our hands. But that's why we're here, and that's why we've been called upon in the Galactic Federation to go down to planet Gaia, the 3D realm. Alright, Azure, let's get ourselves ready to go. Let's hit the time portal and make sure we land in the present day, Mother Gaia, third dimension. Whoa, oopsies. Yeah, not that one. Okay, let's try this one. Maybe this is the portal. Oh yeah, Azure, this is a little too far in the future. I think we need to kind of go back a little bit. There we go. Perfect. Modern day Earth.
Captain Christo, as we approach, I will prepare our guest suite on the mothership for the souls we hold space for. Oh, and Captain, I will be sure to leave plenty of storage for earthly food delights to take for our travels.
Oh my gosh, Azure, you never fail to make me laugh. You know those earthly delights? That good old food of earth. Absolutely gotta have that food of earth. Thank you, Azure. Alright. It is time. It's time to make our way down to 3D Gaia. To hold space, show love, compassion, bridge the conscious collective, and help provide knowledge and wisdom and tools so fellow souls can remember who they are, live in a unified mind state with a harmonious being, with holistic, conscious practices and tools that they may access efficiently and quantumly.
Welcome aboard. I am Azure. Please get cozy. Grab a tea, snacks or crystals as we prepare for a sacred light conversation. The sacred holding space is down the hall to the left. Wholeness, balanced love.
Azar, where do you have me on this mission? Like, what is this? Like, some Indiana Jones? Like, how do you expect me to feel safe right now? Well, I will say, this is an awfully beautiful view, though. Wow, this might have been worth it. So, Azar, who is this starseed that I'm looking for out here in Ireland to be the guest for the mothership?
What's the matter, Captain? You did not enjoy the caves? Our sacred guest, Janet Gracey, is a Reiki practitioner for 9 years and consciously worked with the quantum, akashic realms for 4 years. She has her BSc in Applied Psychology and MSc in Forensics. Along with that, she has experience with neuro-linguistic programming and somatic healing. Janet serves life coaching as well. She resides out of Belfast, Ireland. Thank you for joining us for this sacred light conversation.
Welcome, everybody, to another Sacred Light Conversation podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Christolight, here of Sacred Light Healing and Wellness. And today we are joined by a wonderful divine sister out of Belfast, Ireland, Janet Gracey. And Janet is diverse in many different holistic, quantum level energy healing practices. And she has also studied psychology as well as forensics. And Janet is here with us today to share a little bit about her sacred light, her passions, and why she's here to bring service to the world. Welcome, Janet. How are you today?
I'm very, very well. Thank you for having me, Marcus. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I guess we might as well just go ahead and kick it off and get rolling with things. And my first question for you is, what was, and this is a question I like to ask everybody, is, what was your life like, and what were the circumstances or experiences that took place that then led you into your spiritual awakening or your awareness of self in connection to creation?
Beautiful question. I suppose we have to go right back to the beginning, which is childhood. And I grew up in Northern Ireland, obviously, where I still reside. But as I was growing up, we had civil war in our country. And there was civil war against religious divides. This is what our civil war was about. And as a child, that really confused me. And one of the reasons it confused me was at about 8 years of age. I think I was about 8. I remember there being a person opposite me, and I looked at them and I realized in that moment, and I used the word realization because it didn't feel like I had learned anything new. It felt like actually it was more of a remembrance. Yes, of course, this is what it is. And I looked at this person and realized that what was inside them, behind their eyes, was also inside me. I knew this as a child, but as the universe likes to make jokes, it put me in civil war, right? So it was very confusing for me as a child. And then I suppose as I grew up into my teenage years, everybody called me, I was known as a conspiracy theorist in the family. Janet's a conspiracy theorist. But as I started to go into my later teenage years, we started drinking quite young and partying quite young at nightclubs at like 14, 15. As I started to get into my later years, then that ramped up. I'd done a lot of drinking, a lot of drug taking, and but at the core of it all, even in that era of sort of numbing myself, I used to have this burning question, which was, who am I? Who am I? I felt like the strangest person in the world. I felt like I was maybe the only person in the world who didn't understand who they were. And of course, now I realize that that's not the case. But that question stayed with me for many, many years. And then many more years passed, many life events, many different things, a lot of self-destruction over the 20s. I was very successful, though, in terms of business, in terms of traveling around the world. I'd bought a house, I had a long-term boyfriend. I was doing everything the world said would make me successful. And that question kept burning in me. Who am I? Who am I? I always knew, for me, religion had holes in it that no one could ever really answer me, especially growing up in civil war. No one could ever really answer me these questions. And the year after my daughter was born, my friend sent me the Eckhart Tolle Power of Now book. And that book for me felt like, finally, somebody has answered all of my questions. Somebody has answered all of my questions. And about 6 months after receiving that book, I was sitting in my living room in London, and I was doing some Kundalini breath of fire work, so some deep conscious breathing. And that's when I had Satori enlightenment. This all-encompassing light just took over me. And it probably lasted, in terms of human terms, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. And from that event, my whole entire reality changed instantly in that moment. And it was almost like all the pieces of the puzzle of my life up to that point made sense. I could see it all. And it was such a big revelation that initially it did frighten me. And I thought to myself, why did I have to look? Why did I have to look at this? Because fundamentally, I knew that my life would never be the same again from what I'd seen. It would never be the same again. And at that time, that awakening was in 2015. And at that time, there wasn't really many people awakened. And I was basically on my own doing this, free writing it, trying to work out what was going on, what was happening to me. So I met a man on YouTube called Muji. And I sat with satsang with Muji for many, many, many hours and helped integrate this understanding that I just received through that satsang. And about a month after this, I then went in and done my Reiki. And I had no idea really what Reiki was. I remember going to go and get a book from the library, and on the first book of the library it said, you really need a master teacher. You can't be reading this stuff. You need somebody who knows what they're doing. So I put the book down and booked on to my Reiki level 1 and 2. And the whole course was just like, yes, this makes sense to me. I see this now. I have been doing parts of this. I just maybe didn't know what I was doing. So around the year 2015 was when all of my spiritual life up to that point. And I mean, you know, even within that awakening, I had a sort of like a part of it that was a review of my life, where I had this film almost of my life play out. And it was basically showing me, do you see how everything has worked up to this moment? And one of the things I'll say to everybody about that was, it wasn't necessarily the big life events that I would have deemed were big life events. It was small conversations. It was those moments where my soul was just the key to my soul was opened. Like, one of the things that was shown to me was a conversation I had with a man in the airport that lasted 30 seconds. And I could see the intricacies and the importance of this and the perfection of how everything had flowed up to that point. And then really from 2015 up until present day has been that a deepening of the understanding of myself, and like everybody on this spiritual journey, I then had to go through the dark night of the soul after I'd had this big awakening. And especially for about the first 2 years after that awakening, my entire life came crumbling, smashing down around me, Marcus, to the point where my past was the same. Everything changed for me. And, I'll always say about that 2015 event for me was, what was seen could never be unseen. So I sometimes laugh when people say I'm so tired of the spiritual journey. I'm thinking I could never get out of the spiritual journey now. This is, this is it for me. Like, and as I say, and then, ironically in 2015, when I had that big awakening, I do remember at one point thinking, my gosh, I know everything. I know the secrets of the universe. I'm awakened to it all. And I look back now and realize just how much I didn't still know at that point, right? And I was integrating it. So now, after that experience, I had initially been working in media. I started off in psychology. I started working off actually in life for release in prisons as a forensic psychologist. And I quit that job and ended up in media, publishing houses, music industry for many, many years. And then after I had this awakening, I went back to my psychology and I went back to the coaching and sort of helping people really traverse life through not just a psychological perspective, but an energetic and a spiritual one, which really changes how we deal with self-discovery, actually, when we look at it through that lens. And I have to say, so now my joy, my passion, my whole life's work is really now helping people heal. I do a lot of trauma work, but most importantly, helping them step into their own power. This gives me so much joy because innately it's in all of us, right? These things are in all of us. And that's that I would say is my service now into the collective, is helping others see their own power and heal themselves. Like, great. So yeah, that's my story.
Thank you for sharing all that and giving us a little bit of insight into who you are and your journey and the things that you've had to go through in order to become who you are today. It's a very intriguing path that we have here on this earth, and we all have many, many stories that can be shared, not just shared, but also related to. And I really thank you for being vulnerable today and coming on to share your story, as it holds a lot of value, especially for those that are going through similar things but may not have a voice in it, or they might not have guidance or that comfort of knowing that there's others out there that are going through it as well, and not just going through it, but have been through it and have been able to overcome or be able to integrate the lessons from it. So yeah, I applaud you and thank you for being here on this earth and serving the collective during this time.
I appreciate you, Marcus. And, it's interesting you're saying, thank you for serving the collective at this time, etc. And yet, I can honestly say that my life was directed on this path. I had no concept that this is what I would be doing with my life. Never in a million years did I think that this would be it. And that's why I sort of mentioned that part of the awakening experience where I was shown parts of my life, because it made me realize that even going off and working in the music industry for 5 years all over the world was so purposeful to what I'm doing now, right? It was amazing. And it one of the questions that a lot of people sort of struggle with in this realm is those questions that I struggled with, which is, who am I? Right? Who am I really? And the other question that people struggle with is, you know, what is my purpose, right? People always ask this, what is my purpose? And I often think those two questions go hand in hand, because when you begin to discover who you are, you naturally live your purpose, right? I can honestly say from the bottom of my heart, I had no conscious thought, truly, no conscious thought or plan or whatever, to be doing this type of work. It just naturally sort of happened. And that, when I look back, I realized was the flow state. I didn't need to know where all this was leading to, actually. I really just needed to be present in each moment, and everything led into that. And each moment was always a deeper journey of who am I actually? And through figuring out who I am, you realize that naturally people gravitate to you and ask certain questions, right? Because they recognize innately there's something about you that knows a deeper aspect than the human concept, and the soul recognizes that, whether the intellectual mind recognizes that or not, right? So as I say, it's been a very interesting journey, in the sense of, when we talk about self-discovery, and when we talk about maybe even mastering our craft, etc., in many ways, the best way to do that is always just being present with where you are, and allowing the energy to move you along without expectation of where it's going. And I think ultimately that has been my journey up to this point, has been letting go, and letting the journey bring me where it needs to go, with intention. And when I say intention, I put intention into everything, Marcus. From the minute I wake up in the morning, I intend to have a good day. I intend to feel well. I intend to feel nourished by this food. I intend for my clients to get the benefit of what I'm saying. I intend for them to hear me. And the other thing I will say to everybody is this. This is my biggest piece of advice, is that life's not really that difficult. It's not. Now, a lot of people get triggered when I say that, and then they want to give me a whole PDF version of why their life is hard. But it's not really. It's really not, actually. You'll realize that all suffering comes from our mind, right? It's all suffering comes from our mind. And as I said, the easiest way not to suffer is to go back to that flow state. We don't need to know what tomorrow's going to bring. We don't need to know what our 10-year plan is. It might change in 3 years, right? It's good to have goals, but
might change tomorrow.
Might change tomorrow, Marcus, right? That's what I say. If somebody had said to me 15 years ago, this is what you'll do, I'd never have believed you. Not in a million years. So I find life quite easy, even the harder aspects of life, right? And when I say easy, it doesn't mean that I don't feel. It doesn't mean that I don't experience emotions. I experience it all, if not sometimes more aggressively than the collective, because I can hold higher states of energy, right? But I don't get consumed by it. I let it come and I let it go. I let it be felt through me and I let it go. I know everything's temporary. I know everything's leading me somewhere better. I practice surrender on a daily basis. I recognize that Janet, as the person, does not know everything. And I surrender over to my higher self all the time. You know better. And if you're taking me through this valley, it is for a reason, right? It is for a reason. And, when you really surrender at that level, life becomes easier. Life becomes so much easier. Right? It doesn't mean you escape life. It just means you're not so consumed by what is happening, right? You're not so consumed by what is happening.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a good old quote from a figure that a lot of us know, and that figure says the quote of, be in the world but not of it.
Yeah.
And that right there is a primary example of be in the world but not of it.
Yes.
And there's different ways that we can perceive our relation to the world. And of course, there's many degrees that come within that. And, you know, two of the main degrees that I like to kind of, I guess, identify this as is either body consciousness or worldly consciousness or Christ consciousness. And body consciousness or worldly consciousness is when we identify with the world. We identify with the 3D. We identify with the physical body as who we are and all that we are.
Yes.
Christ consciousness is when our perception and our hemispheres are balanced and we are able to see that there is no separation, even if there is duality.
Yes.
Duality is still connected as one,
Yes.
but different degrees of vibration on the pole of life.
Yes.
So through that, Christ consciousness, as we call it, in many other different terms, you're able to then be detached from the 3D world, from the worldly affairs, so that you may walk through in sovereign energy through this matrix system that we're in.
Yes.
And then you're more of that true multidimensional quantum time traveler that you truly are, because
Yes.
you're allowing yourself to be in a lighter field of vibration due to the awareness of who you are in that moment. So we can alternate and fluctuate the vibration rate of how we are experiencing our being in this world through our mentalism or our mental perception.
Yes.
And when we choose that body consciousness that I spoke on at first, then we're choosing to experience and to hold the embodiment and the perception of being only a third dimensional being
Yes.
at our fullest capacity.
Yes.
Compared to where if we are continuing to align ourselves with eternal energy, breaking our limited beliefs, as well as detaching from the world identification, and we are able to be in the embodiment and the perception of what you could say is fifth dimensional consciousness and above.
Yes.
And there's a lot to that, and it's really something that is more of experience for yourself than really for someone to be able to tell you what
Yes.
those states are like or what it's like to be in that.
Yes.
But there's many practices that can help you achieve that balance and get to that state. And a question for you is, Janet, is what are some of your favorite practices that help you achieve that state of balance and Christ consciousness within?
Well, let's first of all talk about duality and perception, and because I think it's interesting for people to understand what's really happening. Is that, and the other thing you're saying is about body consciousness versus Christ consciousness. First thing that people need to understand is that the consciousness, our consciousness, is not inside the body. The body is inside our consciousness. Now, people might need to pause and go back and ponder that and really understand that statement. But our body is in our consciousness, not the other way around. That's the first thing to realize. So how we perceive our body is through our consciousness, okay? One of the points that you touched on, Marcus, is it's just basically a scale of opposites. So love and hate and all the things that sit in the middle of that scale, or lack and abundance, or joy and sadness. These are scales. These are scales of duality. And then the third thing to understand is perception and how that is filtered through our consciousness. Now, what I mean by that is our experiences will change the way we see things. One of the examples I like to give to a lot of my classes is this. If I put a fox in a room And I have two participants, participant A and participant B. And each participant just has to go into the room, be with the fox for 2 minutes and walk out. And it's a domesticated fox. It's not scary. It's a domesticated fox. Participant A walks into the room, spends 2 minutes with the fox, comes out and says, oh my gosh, that was such a beautiful experience. I feel really calm, so much nostalgia, just a wonderful experience. Thank you so much for allowing that. Person B goes into the room with the fox and spends 2 minutes, comes out hyperventilating, almost taking a panic attack, shaking with fear. Their nervous system is all over the place. And they'll say, that was the most frightening experience I've had in a long time. My heart is absolutely beating out of my chest. And what you'll realize is that the fox didn't change, the room didn't change, and the amount of time spent in that room did not change. The only thing that changed was the perception of each participant. And you can usually understand why people see things the way they do whenever you go a little bit deeper and figure stuff out about them. So person A that came out of that room thinking, I'm so nostalgic, this is lovely. You'll dig a little deeper and you'll realize, oh, their parents owned a fox sanctuary when they were children. So foxes remind them of their childhood. They are very natural around foxes. They had such good feelings. So therefore, the fox brought up all these good feelings in that person. And then the person that came out panicking, you'll dig a little deeper and you'll realize that maybe they were bitten by a fox whenever they were 4 years old. And that trauma and the memory of that event has stayed in their body. And therefore, their perception of a fox is one of being frightening. So this is duality. The fox doesn't, everything is neutral. Everything is fundamentally neutral. And we, as the conscious observer of life, get to decide on what scale of duality do we get to look at this event, picture, or thing, right? So when you're asking me, how do I manage that? Then I start to say to myself, well, if I'm looking at my life personally and I'm looking at it through a negative slant, the first thing I'll ask is, why am I choosing to perceive it through this lens? Why? And then I'll go back and I'll realize, well, I'm choosing it through this lens because I had childhood experiences that related to this, or I had an event around this, and therefore my past and my past memories are tainting what I see. And then I'll begin to give myself the medicine for that. So if what I see is a lack of self-love or a lack of self-understanding, then I begin to make sure that I understand myself, that I love myself, that I begin to change my perspective a little to soften it to what I'm actually saying. One of the other big pieces of advice I give everybody is that, and this applies to manifestation, this applies to mindset coaching, this applies to energy work, is you want to find a softer perspective than how things currently are. And even if something in brackets we deem horrific has happened, you can find a softer way of looking at it. So for instance, you might lose your house, it's going into foreclosure, you haven't been able to pay your mortgage, you're losing your house. You get a choice how you view this situation, just like the foxes. You get a choice. How you're going to choose to see that will be through your conditioning, the things that have happened in your past, the way life has showed itself to you in the past, things how your parents would have coped in these certain situations. And you will generally go for that option. So your option might be, this is terrible. What am I going to do? I'm going to be homeless. This is the worst thing that could have ever happened to me. And you start to panic a little bit. I'll say to people, you don't need to jump to life is amazing. This is the best thing that's ever happened to me. You don't need to jump to that perspective, because for most people to jump to that perspective, you're not really going to believe it if your house is being taken away. For most people, you're not going to believe that this is the greatest thing. So you want to find a softer perspective. And that softer perspective could simply be something like, everything that has fallen away in my life in the past has always built something new for myself. And I may not know where this is leading me to, but I recognize that I've always been taken care of in the past. We're not negating what's happening, we're just softening how we're looking at it. And this is the scale of duality. And we all get our own perception of life, which is why we all see life completely differently, even when we're looking at the same thing, because it's being filtered through our own personal lens. And then therefore, to soften your lens, you've got to ask, why am I suffering what I'm saying? Why am I suffering what I'm saying? And every time you find yourself suffering, figure out why. Figure out why. And whenever you've figured out why, you need to complete the energetic loop and figure out what the medicine is for it, right? So if I figure out that I have a fear of not being good enough, right? There's no point in me just looking at that fear and doing absolutely nothing with it. I need to look at that fear and say, right, well, how do I dismantle this? So, you know, I need to look at the ways in which to give myself the medicine of this, which is, why do I fear being seen by other people? What is at the crux of that? Well, it's a sense of not feeling good enough because I was always told I wasn't good enough in childhood. Is this actually true? It is not true, but my mind has believed it. So I need to now start giving myself the medicine where I affirm my worthiness. And I can do that through, you know, taking some time for self-care. I could write in a diary. I could write myself a love note. I just want to spend time nurturing and loving me. So I hope that explains it, Marcus. I know sometimes it can be difficult to explain this process, but, you know, I think at the crux of it for everyone is your life is not against you. No matter what you're experiencing, it is not against you. It is showing, it's like coordinates of a map to your soul. This is what life is. So it feels hard or it feels heavy. It's trying to tell you something, right? You need to figure out what that something is. Let it be there, understand it, and then offer yourself the medicine around it. Does that make sense, Marcus? Or if I sort of went off on a bit of a tangent?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It makes sense to me. And I'm sure it resonates with those that it will naturally resonate with. And yeah, you got a little bit of love on the IG side by a good sister, Sarah. And she said, I love this. It is both, yes. Going back to your duality conversation. And then she said, you're amazing. Thank you. You've reminded me of my inner wisdom, and I couldn't call on today. Thank you.
Perfection. And you know, and you know the word there, reminded, that's all everybody ever needs, right? Is reminded. That's the thing. A healer does not heal. A healer does not heal. A spiritual teacher does not heal. They remind you of what's innately already within you with the intention that it will awaken that part of your soul in remembrance, right? This is right. We innately all know, you know. I look at it as if I was trying to help someone else, then I can find easier solutions. I think that's a great idea, Rose, actually, because I think when it's sort of like that principle of tarot reading for yourself. Sometimes it's so much easier to read tarot for someone else because you have no concern for the outcome. You're just reading the energy. Whereas if you're reading for yourself, you tend to question it. So I think that's a great approach. Imagine that you're dealing it for a third party. I think it'll give a really nice balanced solution, actually. 100%.
Discover the magic of holistic healing. Join us in Blue Ash for a retreat like no other. Picture this, a full day in Blue Ash, Ohio, immersed in healing and creativity. On October 26th, from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., Sacred Light Healing and Wellness is hosting a one-day retreat you won't want to miss. Dive deep into your inner child with Marcus Christolight's powerful workshop. Heal those mother-father wounds and transform your life. And that's just the beginning. Get artsy with live painting by Columbus artist Thomas Cox, or try festive hair aesthetics with Chelsea Hall. When the sun sets, experience the mesmerizing fire and flow arts with Chris Rust. Feeling crafty? Carve pumpkins, enjoy therapeutic freestyle painting, or indulge in one-on-one holistic healing session. Reiki, DMT breathwork and card readings await you. Hungry? Save a homemade plant-based chili for lunch and a delicious dinner of salad, chickpea pasta and mashed potatoes. Plus, reishi coffee to keep you energized. All of this for just $44, and kids 12 and under are free. It's a sober event, so everyone can join in the fun safe. Register today with the link in the description or DM Marcus Christolight with any questions. Come out, heal and have fun with us. See you there.
Yeah, I really liked your reminders, because something that I have been bringing up quite a bit in my other podcasts and other conversations is, and this is like the most tangible way of transferring this that came through me was, ultimately it's going to come down to you deciding for your own self what your relation is to this world, what your relation is to the energy that you're experiencing in the moment.
Yes.
And that relation is not going to be chosen or determined by anybody else or anything else for you. That is completely up to you out of your authentic free will that you are born with through the Creator. And, really for me to come to this awareness and really not just be aware of it, but embody it more and more, it has taken levels of dedication to myself.
Yes.
And taking the space, taking the time to dig through my layers. When I say dig through my layers, digging through my mental body, clearing out the programmings, the conditioning, the manipulation, the brainwashing that is embodying and resembling different from that intention. And it gets deep. It gets very deep, especially when you think about the program of the masses, the program of schooling, the program that we may pick up on from our family, the programming from our friends, community. I can go on and on. And some of us, we really easily absorb a lot of people's opinions, a lot of people's judgments, a lot of people's beliefs. And that gets stored in that subconscious container. And we may not be able to consciously acknowledge it, but there could be subtle patterns and there could be subtle triggerings of those conditionings and programmings continuing to cycle into our conscious awareness and conscious perspective. And then for my psychology people out there, this is what creates what we call cognitive distortions due to the memories that we have in our subconscious container, distorting our present reality and perception. So for me, that's been huge, really peeling back those layers of like, I'm not who I want. I'm not who my friends want me to be. I'm not who my family wants me to be. I'm not who the school has indoctrinated me to be. And I also don't have to take on their beliefs. Even if they're my friends and I love them, or even if they're my family and I love them, I don't have to take on their beliefs. And that's okay. That's the beauty of free will and the multidimensional power that we have. But for a lot of us, I know we're really scared. We're really in fear, and we don't want to say no. We don't want to come off a certain way, or we don't want to be selfish because we're standing for ourselves and what we stand in as our truth. But for me, I found that people pleasing, bypassing, and just absorbing what other people wanted me to be, it was doing a displeasure to my soul. And not just to my soul, but to my higher purpose of who I came here to be. So then when I started grounding myself more and more into my being through different practices like chakra balancing, yoga, breath work, and also journaling. Journaling has been a great practice. Journaling out any mental struggles, journaling out any emotional struggles, and then bringing that into a meditation or into another type of practice to integrate and clear is something that has been very foundational for me. So yeah, just really to close out that part is try to remember that it is always ultimately going to come down to you and your free will, your choices, the way that you choose to believe yourself to be in relation to this world, and what you're going to do in the present moment with the energy, experiences, and information that you have in the present moment that you're experiencing.
Yes.
So when you're going through something and you're feeling it and you're experiencing it, as much as it may be painful, as much as it may be joyful, as much as it may be scary, it is something that has been brought to you as an energy form for you to be able to alchemize as a master of humanity, of your own human self, to be able to utilize it in whatever fashion you would like out of your free will. That's how blessed we are, guys. Like, that is how blessed we are.
Right.
We've been so blessed that every single interaction, every single exchange of energy, good, bad, joyful, pain, sad, it is given to you to be able to do anything that you would like out of the whole spectrum of creation.
Yes.
With that energy experience.
Yes.
I know it's not always easy. Sometimes we get really caught on it and we're just like, oh man, the experience, the experience, the experience, the experience. 5 days later, we're talking about the experience. Oh, this experience, you know, a month later, oh, the experience happened. The experience happened. A year later, man, the experience happened with that boyfriend. The experience I went through with that boyfriend. 5 years later, man, you know, that boyfriend I had, I went through that experience with him.
Yeah.
So, you know, we can prolong that, or we can step into that self-master role and just be like, okay,
A million percent.
I experienced this.
Sorry, Marcus.
I was gonna say, we could also just say, I experienced this, but now it's over with. So now that I am with this energy, what kind of lessons can I learn from this? What kind of wisdom can I take? And how can I move forward with a new sense of myself so I don't continue to repeat these lessons?
Yes. Yes. Do you know, one of the things that, you know, comes up a lot in my work, and I talk to people a lot about this in my work. Everybody says to me, what is your secret, Janet? Like, what is your secret? Do you know what I've come to the conclusion? My secret is that I don't beat myself up for having a human experience on this journey, right? And I think that's something that so many people do, especially when maybe they're starting out. They want to be like these perfect humans in some regard. And how do we disable lifetimes, not even in this lifetime, lifetimes of conditioning, of propaganda, of parental influence, of, you know, school indoctrination, religious indoctrination. And I think that's what you were saying, Marcus, is there's so many subtleties to it and so many layers to it that to expect ourselves to be magically enlightened within a year, 2 years, whatever, is a big ask, right? So you've got to be really gentle with yourself in this process, actually, and say, and I'll say that to everybody, that is sometimes the difference. The only difference between you and I is I don't beat myself up for my human moments, for my moments of looking at life through my conditioned lens, or for those points of my life where I maybe felt like I didn't make the right decision or couldn't see something else. Whereas a lot of people I work with will spend exactly what you're saying, Marcus, decades talking about things that are in the past, decades. And it's like, it's, one of the most healing energies of all. And actually, for me, it is the foundation from which all healing begins, is self-acceptance of this moment. You've got to accept where you are right in this moment. None of us are perfect humans with all the answers. We're not supposed to be. This is a journey of what I believe is refining ourselves. There is the false self, which is our conditioning, our karmic lessons, our soul lessons, our generational DNA, our past life stuff that comes across with us, teachers, school, relationships, false self, all the things that we have been told about ourselves that is innately not true. And then we have our true self, which is the higher self, the pure version of ourself, the one that's connected to all things and everything, understands this world. And really, we spend this lifetime dismantling that false self and embodying more of the true essence of ourselves. And which is why also a huge amount of people, if I was to go out into the general public, I know we're talking on a platform whereby we have conscious souls here. You're not going to be on this platform if you haven't awakened to some level, right? So, but if I go out into the general public, most of the general public feel if you ask them, do you know who you are? Most of them haven't a clue even what they like, what they want, where they want to be in life. Most people haven't a clue about anything about themselves. They live in a habitual state in the subconscious mind, where 95% of their day is habitual. It is from the subconscious. It is responding in a way that other people told them to respond in, that's acting in a way that society told them they should be acting in. And 95% of their day is spent in a false version of who they really are. And then people wonder, why do I feel so depressed? Why do I feel so out of touch with myself? Why do I feel like I don't know myself? And that's because you're living in a program of identity that isn't even who you are, right? That isn't even who you are. And the easiest way to figure out who is my false self and what is my true self, the true self feels aligned. It feels right. It feels like it's purposeful. It talks kindly to you. It sees the unconditional love in your journey. Any part of yourself that says, I am not worthy, I am not good enough, I'm a mess, I haven't got to where I should have been, I am a victim of this person. This is the false self. This is the false self, and it doesn't feel good. So every time you come across something that doesn't feel good, explore it. Explore it. This is the key to your own internal freedom. Why am I not feeling good? Most people just accept I don't feel good and then go off and feed that not feeling good thought with more not good feeling thoughts, right? You can stop it in its tracks and say, what is going on? Where in my body do I feel this? Where in my body do I feel this? Intuitively, it'll always be the first place that you think of. Your mind will try and talk you out of that. You don't know. You're not that intuitive, but it is. It's always the first place your body thinks of. Where in my body am I holding this wound? What is this wound about? How is it making me feel? Where did I first remember identifying with that wound? That's the other piece of advice I give to everybody. If you want to get to the root of your wound, you need to figure out where you personally identify with it. So you need to get to the statement that says, I am, or anything that starts with I am is personal identification. I am not very good at art. I am not a great girlfriend. I am not a good traveler. I am an anxious person. These are all self-identification, right? And all of those can be changed. So do you want to be an anxious person? No. Well, then stop identifying yourself as one. You're not an anxious person. Innately, you're not. Your true self is not anxious. Your false self is anxious. So take the I am out of it and remember it does not belong to you unless you accept this is me, right? Does that make sense, Marcus? Sometimes I feel like I go off on a wee tangent and then I don't know if I've lost people.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Definitely makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was well said too. Very well said and clear.
Good.
Wow. Beautiful soul food in this episode. Wow. Andre on Facebook says, so much sense, Janet.
Miss
So,
Andrea.
Sounds like you're getting it out there correctly for everybody. So just trust that, sister. Trust that your communication is as clear as it needs to be.
I usually say that to my clients. I'll go off on a tangent, you know, Marcus, and then I'll say, I feel like I've gone off on a tangent, and they'll all say, no, that's exactly what I needed to hear. It's exactly what I needed to hear.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, life ain't that hard, honestly. And I know that sounds, especially to people that are sitting in the trenches right now, they're like, oh, come on, girl, you know. But I'm being honest when I say there's a place of peace regardless of how much the outside world shakes. And I can promise you that. Let the outside world shake, nothing happens to you. Nothing happens to you. It might feel like a fire goes off inside of you. And I think that's part of this awakening process where you've got to let the fire of the false self burn. It's got to burn, and it stings in the burning. It stings in the burning. And there can be a lot of a sense, there can also be a lot of what I would call an existential crisis. I've been through 1,000 existential crises in this journey. I have no idea who I am, what I'm doing, where I'm going. I have no idea. But really what's happening is you're killing off the false sense of yourself, that place you really identified as, and realizing that's not actually me. And it can, even though it's the false self, it can feel like we're losing ourselves, right? And it can feel like we're losing that stability. We're not really. We're just letting go of the old, outdated version of self. So it's a process, and it's one that you know, I think you touched on it, Marcus, when you're saying it's like, you got to commit to this, like, right? You can't, if you're going in, you're going in full throttle to this game, like, and then once you're in it, it'll become normal and natural to see your life like this, because you'll begin to see it. You'll begin to look back and reflect and say, God, yeah, like, I look at all those times that I sat up at night worried about X, Y, and Z, but here I am. Survived it all, right? Or those nights that you worried about stuff, and you can look back now and say, it did all work out. It did all work out for me. And the more you're able to observe all of this, then you just let go of trying to control what's happening now, right? Because you realize you're only hurting yourself by doing that, actually. And I said to a girl the other day in my coaching, awakening and surrender and all this is really like being placed at the top of a mountain, right? With no parachute, no support, no backup system, and you're being told to jump off the mountain, right? It's kind of scary, right? It's going to be scary. It feels really scary. And somebody's saying, I'm going to catch you. You can't see me, but trust that I will catch you. For a lot of people, they will procrastinate at the top of that mountain. Am I really going to be caught? Should I look for a safety net? Can I try and take this parachute with me sneakily? And really awakening is, I'm going to throw myself off the mountain knowing I'll be caught. This is awakening. And this is sort of the difference in trying to control your life and handing it over to a higher power, you know, that runs through all of us. And all of us are innately safe and well and looked after. We just have to all come into that understanding and see that for ourselves. But it's happening and it's true, you know. So for me, self-discovery is the greatest path anybody can ever take. The greatest path. right? There's nothing you can do that is more important than your own self-discovery. Facts. Facts.
That's right. Wow. I feel like that's a really beautiful place to leave off on this podcast.
Yes.
And for everybody out there that has enjoyed Janet's presence, her wisdom, and her knowledge, you guys can connect with Janet with her various practices that she offers in coaching. And you guys can actually go directly to her website. And the website is right here for all of you guys to see, janetgracey.com. And Janet, would you really talk about your website, how people can reach out to you and connect with you for services and questions?
Oh, look, you've it all so done so well, Marcus. My website up. Yeah, look, I mean, on my website, you can contact me on my email, hello@janetgracey.com. You can DM me. We can talk about sort of the services I offer. I offer group work, like my fully fearless freedom container. My conscious coaching is 90 minutes of bespoke one-to-one work, and then a bespoke healing modality at the end of that. And I do a lot of, I talk about somatic work and mindset reprogramming and trauma work. But I do a lot of other work. Like I do a lot of inner child work. I do a lot of timeline healing. We do a lot of energy work, just whatever's best for you. The Reiki and quantum healing session is a 2-hour session. It's a big energetic reset. And then, for those who can't afford my normal coaching services or the bigger work I do, on the new and full moons, I offer some spaces on my Facebook page at reduced rates for those people. So there's loads of different ways you can connect with me. You can connect with me over my socials. I have loads of free stuff. I have a free mini mindfulness course on this. Go and check that out. 21 days of mini mindfulness. And listen, if you've any questions or you want to know more, you can always hit me up. Email, Facebook, Instagram.
All right. Wonderful. And I'll be sure to put down in the description below all of her connection points for you guys. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments on the replay, either on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. And if you guys want to reach out to Janet or myself for any services, any questions, or even just conscious conversation, reach out. And I'm sure we will do what we can that resonates with you guys. And thank you to all of you that have tapped in and participated in the comments on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you to all of you that are in my space for the first time. I hope that you guys enjoyed, and you guys can subscribe on the YouTube, follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and support the Sacred Light movement as we are continuing to bridge and unify worldwide community online and in person, as well as providing easier and efficient access to knowledge, tools, and self-empowerment for all of us to access and have in our everyday life, so we can have a more holistic and conscious everyday living. From our children to our elders, we are all here together. We all have stories, and we are here to unify and grow. Janet, thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Marcus. Thank you.
Absolutely. You have a blessed day.
You too, my love.
And would you like to say a closeout to the collective?
I was sort of pondering this podcast before we came onto it. And I was sort of thinking to myself, if I had a message to the world, what would my message be to the world? And my message to the world would be is that you are a soul having a human experience. You are a soul having a human experience. The body is temporary. these experiences of life are not random. They're perfect, designed innately, specifically for your journey to help you awaken. And if you just soften yourself into that and, you know, rather than look at yourself like a project you have to fix, which is how most people look at themselves, remember that there is actually nothing to fix. You just have to remember how lovely you always were. This is the game. You got to remember how lovely you always were. You don't need to be fixed. And whoever's watching this and maybe you're struggling a wee bit or things do feel very difficult, nothing lasts forever. And I want to remind everybody that no state lasts forever. So if there's tough things going on right now, breathe through it. The breath work is universally some of the best work you can do for yourself, that especially for people who are very traumatized, who get a lot of trauma come up in the body. Breath work is really great for you folks as well. Breathe through the experience, begin to look around you, realize you're just in this here and now, you're just in this moment, and begin to ground yourself back into this moment, and you'll realize a lot of your problems disappear with that. So I do be sending so much love out to the collective, and I want you all to know that you know, my heart is with everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus.
So, yes, absolutely. It's an honor. So that does it, everybody, for this episode of Sacred Light Conversations podcast with Janet Gracey. I am Marcus Christolight, Sacred Light Healing and Wellness. You guys can catch me live coming up on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern for the next episode, as I will be having a sister of the Rainbow Wheel Medicine coming on to share some wisdom and knowledge of the rainbow native traditions. And then on Wednesday, I'll be live at 10 p.m. Eastern for Ascending Beyond Limitations with Sandy Marshall, the Law of One study. And then also for those of you that are local in Ohio and like to travel as well, I will be hosting a retreat this Saturday in Ohio for an Inner Child Sanctuary. We'll be doing an Inner Child Healing Workshop. We will also be doing plant-based lunch and dinner, flow arts and fire, as well as live painting and some other beautiful things like hermetic workshops. So if you guys want to reach out, ask questions on how you can attend, I'm right here, and you guys can contact me. So everybody have a blessed day. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday or wherever you are during this moment that you hear this. And just remember, wholeness and balanced love.